What's up, everybody? We are here inside of LeMoyne's campus, and we are inside of, I'm going to call it the dugout. I can call it the dugout here. We're here with Scott Cassidy, the head coach of the baseball team here with the LeMoyne Dolphins, an alum of LeMoyne, former player of LeMoyne, and professional player as well. So, Scott, how are you?
Very well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to be hanging out inside of the dugout for the entire broadcast here of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Scott's going to be with us all the way through to about 10:30 a.m. Eastern time today. And then we'll be joined, as you can see here in Mon Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factories, What's Poppin', and that we'll have Bob Beretta is going to be joining us as well, and he'll be carrying us through the final half hour of the broadcast, the athletics director here. So typically we do the Dolphin Dive every second and fourth Wednesday, and it's about a half an hour from like 9 to 9:30. Scott, you're getting the entire show. So you will now have the longest Dolphin Dive in history up to this point.
I love it. I love it. It's good stuff.
So what's going on? I mean, bring me into, obviously the season's kicked off. You've been able to travel a bit. What's been maybe some of your major takeaways at this point?
Yeah, it's been a pretty good season so far. Record-wise, not where we're looking for, but I think we're playing some pretty good ball. We've been able to get out a lot on the road, obviously, to start the season off. We've made a trip down to North Carolina, then down to Myrtle Beach, and then kind of worked our way back through Pennsylvania a little bit this last week. So fortunately, we've had some decent weather up to this point. We've only had one rain out at cold out at Jefferson. So so far, so good on that front.
And, getting to travel a bit here and getting to, see how the team is in different places. How has this year's unit traveled, in your opinion? And, do you feel like it takes a little while to get their legs under them, or do you feel like they've been comfortable kind of anywhere they've been?
I think for the most part they've been comfortable. It's weird because we haven't really traveled that much in the last couple of years due to COVID. So, I was telling my assistant coach, about a week ago, man, and then we feel like we've been on the road a lot. And it's no different than we normally are during a regular season, but without basically the preseason last year before conference. We've been on the road quite a bit, so I think the kids love it. They love getting out of the snow and going down south and getting ready to play. And, there's only so much you can do indoors to prepare. So they've been really good with the road trip so far.
And for you, I mean, to go back to the beginning for you, and we'll kind of Tarantino this thing and come back to the current season, I want to start with your why. Just why baseball when you were growing up? Like, when was that moment that you felt like, I'm really in love with this sport? This is really something I want to make a part of my daily life.
Yeah, I've always loved the sport of baseball. Just growing up, my dad kind of instilled that in me when we were young. Me and my two brothers played basketball as well, but baseball was always kind of my true love. And I took to it early. I had a lot of success when I was young. I've had a ton of bumps in the road on the way through, but I knew it was something that I think I could do, moving forward. Probably, later in high school, I had a lot of summer league success, so it started to hit then. And then, I had to get through the college years. I was a transfer student, so again, there were some bumps on the way, but I always in my mind knew I could hopefully play this game at the next level, and luckily and fortunate for me, I have been able to.
And you said, you fell in love with it, that you've always been in love with it. What about, do you have a first memory of something you watched or something you saw that just caught your eye?
Not in particular. I'm a Yankee fan.
Okay.
But, back then, they weren't very good, So my favorite player was Don Mattingly. I loved to watch Don Mattingly. I had the posters of him and Dave Winfield and stuff on my wall. But it's just watching baseball on TV, being able to play it. It was different back then. We didn't have, year-round baseball indoors. So, you hit the winter months, you played basketball, but you couldn't wait till it cleared out so you can get up back and play baseball again. So, just watching the Yankees and that kind of thing kind of got me going with it.
And you had the opportunity, like you said, growing up watching the Yankees to, become a fan as many have. And my dad, my grandfather, both Yankee fans, and my grandfather up in heaven, my dad, still a Yankee fan to this day and watching and whatnot. You said Don Mattingly. What was it about Don that you just loved?
I just loved like how gritty he was. He was a baseball player,
Yeah.
He did all the little things that you needed to do. He could hit, he wasn't the best runner, but he fielded his position like no other. But he just had that grittiness about him that makes you think of a baseball player. You think of Don Mattingly.
And when do you have a least favorite Yankee? Because I do.
I don't really, and if I did, I'd probably keep it on the wraps.
Okay. I would say my least favorite is Stay Rodriguez, but he got that nickname from me in 2008, and he's kept it all the way through. I wanted to have a unique one, so my favorite Yankees would probably be Jeter, DiMaggio, and then I would say, because we have the same birthday, he'll always hold a special place in my heart, and that's Whitey Ford. We're both October 21st. So, what team, besides the Red Sox, did you loathe growing up? Because there's one that I can say clearly, and it's because, well, I'm not going to tell you why because I don't want to give it away. But what team did you loathe the most, the one they, played up against the Yankees?
I don't even know if it was a team that played up against the Yankees. I think one of the teams I couldn't really stand watching when I was little was the Braves. Yeah. I just thought that the believe it or not, we're talking broadcast. I thought the broadcasts were so boring watching the Braves games and they were labeled America's team back then, and
yeah.
In my mind, the Yankees were the America's team, so I always kind of had a little disdain for the Braves. That's changed now. I like watching the Braves now, but back then it had to have been them.
And I think it's funny that you said that, because that is my exact answer. Growing up as a kid, the Braves played the Yankees in the World Series a lot, so I didn't think anything of the Red Sox. I always was watching it with my dad, so you're kind of, like you grew up that Braves were bad. Braves were the bad thing, the Yankees were the good thing. However, my favorite pitching rotation maybe ever was their rotation, because it was unfair. You got Smoltz, you got Maddox, and I'm missing one here.
Avery.
And what'd you say?
Steve Avery.
Yeah, and so you had, there's this entire group with the Braves that you just felt spoiled to watch. So I didn't like the team, but I really liked the pitching.
Yeah, it's funny because fast forward down the road, I was in spring training with the Padres, and Maddox was one of my teammates. So it was
Really?
crazy to have him around, and I was the same way. I'm like, it's probably arguably the best pitching staff that's ever been put together, and then you get a chance to be by the side of this guy, and he was amazing.
So bring me into that. I want to hear what life was like to be on the same team.
It's crazy because this was I think that was 2007, the spring of 2007, and I had pitched in the big leagues for a few years, one year with Toronto and then one with San Diego. You think that at some point you get comfortable enough where you're not a little awestruck.
Yeah.
And then he walks in and you're like, man, that's Greg Maddux. It's crazy that you're in the same locker room with him. And at the time, Boomer Wells was with us at the time, so we had some big name guys in our locker room at the same time. It was pretty special.
Yeah, and when you look through, the history of the game of baseball, because we're going to go to a lot of different places today here with Scott Cassidy, the LeMoyne Dolphins baseball head coach and an alum of LeMoyne, and as we're Wake Up Call is being taken over by the Dolphins today. Instead of doing our typical Dolphin Dive for the second and fourth Wednesday of each month in our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership, we're actually sitting here hanging out in the dugout the whole time. Scott and then Bob Beretta in the last half hour of today's broadcast inside of the Travel Cafe Kubal Studios. Make sure you fill your cup up right today. So, Scott, when you look at the game itself, what is it about baseball? Because I've had a lot of conversations recently with everything going on with the lockout and the new collective bargaining agreement. Why should baseball stay relevant to people today? Because there's this notion that, the game, it takes so long, it's boring, the season's so long. What would you say to those people?
It's tough for me to think about that because I think that if you're a baseball purist and you love baseball, I don't see how the game can be too long. You know, I think about it when I watch a Yankee game at night. It starts at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
If it's 10:30 and they're going, I'm still watching it and I love it. And then when the game's over, I'm like flicking the channels for another game. You know,
Yeah.
so it's like true baseball fans, people that know baseball, enjoy watching the game of baseball. And I think that the length of the game, I mean, what is 15 minutes going to do for you? Like, is it going to, the people that want to stop watching the game after 3 innings are going to stop watching the game after 3 innings, whether
Right.
it's 3 hours or 3.5 hours. I do understand the concept of it. You want to kind of, and even for the players, you know, like their long nights.
Yeah.
But I love watching the game. I love the nuances of the game. I love the strategy of the game. And I think all of that stuff takes part of why it takes a little bit longer. But I think you remove some of that, like with the pitching changes, and you get the new rule with the relief pitchers have to be in there for 3 hitters.
Yeah.
That kind of takes away from the strategy that once was, and it makes a new strategy. So it's an interesting rule. But it's something that they think will speed up the game. But then it takes away that lefty-lefty matchup only that used to be part of it, which for me, I kind of loved it because then it really made that you need more guys in the pen.
Yeah.
And I was a bullpen guy, so it gave me the shot to be in the bullpen, you know, with more guys out there, more guys being used. So, you know, I think that if you really do, or if you're a baseball fan, I don't think the 10, 15 minutes extra in the game would really affect your love for the game.
Well, and the question is, you know, when you look at the rules and the changes that are happening, are there rules that you like? Are there rules that you dislike when you look at, you know, the new collective bargaining agreement? Because there's something I definitely want to go to, but you know, you mentioned some stuff there. So, what do you like? What don't you like?
There's some interesting changes for sure. Like I obviously when you talk salary, I think for the players it's fantastic that they got a little bump for the lower level guys, the rookies and whatnot, because they pay their dues in the minor leagues. You know, they don't make money at all, and it's a tough grind. So when they get up there, I think they should be rewarded for it. When you're talking about the changes of the game, I'll be honest with you, I don't really like the no shift rule. I think you got 7 guys behind you, you know, pitching, and if they decide that they want to put their guys all in right field, then let them put them in right field, and it's your job to get on base. And if you don't want to take the advantage of hitting the ball to the left side, then that's part of the strategy of the game, in my mind. It doesn't. I don't think it's a speed up thing. I think it's gonna help the big lefties that now you can't shift on them. But you know, it's one of those things. Baseball has morphed into the home run in strikeouts, and it would be kind of nice to see it morph back into, you know, hitting and running and stealing bases. And if they're going to give you the whole left side of the infield, put a bunt down over there and get on base, you know. And it's hard to see now that you're gonna rule out the shift, which takes some of the strategy out of it, you know.
So I mean, for you, it seems like, you know, ultimately these rules that are changing are because they're taking strategy out and they're taking out what a team may want to do differently. That's what you don't like is the fact that, you know, when a team looks at it and says, okay, you know, we're all out there playing our game. This is what we're, just like with anything with the NFL, you know, some teams run reverses, some teams don't. You know, with the NBA, some teams have set plays and set screens. Some teams just free for all. So in the game of baseball, like you were talking about, if you're strategizing and saying, okay, you know, this is what we're going to do in this situation, this is how we're going to treat this. If you start making rules saying you can't, now you're taking maybe a team's path to victory away from them. And, you know, that in and of itself is maybe taking away identities of teams and trying to make every team look alike. And if you're trying to do that, well, then the team with the better hitters that are more powerful is obviously they're going to rise to the top, and everybody else is going to be left watching, which takes any kind of originality out of the game.
Yeah. You hit it right on the head. It's when you're basically not rewarding people that are mindful and trying to basically develop their team to win a certain way.
Yeah.
You know, and and when you have these managers that are smart enough to make these changes to benefit their team, and you take that away, it's exactly what you said. The bigger, stronger hitters, the powerful guys benefit. I saw a meme one day about like the NFL. It's like, imagine if they told the safeties they couldn't go. You can't play two safeties deep or whatever, and now you're just running routes out there all day because you don't let them do it. And it's kind of the same situation. So it's really difficult to see it, but baseball, it's evolved, and there's a lot of different things going on, and you can't get, as much as I like to think that I'm more of an old school type of guy, I also have to understand that things have definitely changed in the game, so it's part of it. It's part of the evolution. So, we'll roll with the next rules and see how that goes.
It's like the NCAA not wanting a lot of defense, so they try to eradicate your ability to defend the ball in so many areas because they want high scores.
True.
So it's just let the game be what it is and let people strategize the way they want to. In that respect, universal DH, for or against?
I'm on the fence, because, and this is why I played in both the American League and National League, and the American League lineups are much tougher to get through, obviously, with the DH. But I also think that in the National League, there's so much more thought that goes into managing the game, and your manager really comes into play. Yeah. You have to be able to know when you're going to double switch, who you're going to pinch run, pinch hit, what are you going to do with your pitchers, because you don't want them to all hit all the time in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning. It really comes into play about managing the game, where I think the American League managers just need to manage the bullpen. Because you're hitting, you got your 9, that's your 9. You're really not going to pinch hit from any of them. Yeah. So like the management part of it comes through. I was fortunate enough to play for Bruce Bochy, who I thought managed the game phenomenally. I mean, obviously he won a few World Series down the road, but he was great at managing the bullpen and knowing when to go to him and how to mix and match with matchups. It was awesome. So like the universal DH, I don't know.
Well, again, it's what we just talked about. It takes away strategy.
Right.
Because now I have been a proponent of it's one or the other. Because living in a world where the American League and the National League are playing two different forms of baseball, I don't think is fair. To say, okay, you got this guy who may or may not be juiced up, but you got this big Michelin man who's going to come up here and try to bomb these things. And then you have your 97, pound Randy Johnson pitcher who's, got a batting average that's as good as mine, and I haven't played in a long time. So, it's one of those things where it was so disproportionate. It's not fair to look at the game that way. And I guess I don't understand how Major League Baseball came about saying, all right, you guys have to have your pitcher hit. You guys can have a guy who literally does nothing but hit the ball. It seems like you got an ace in a hole, and then this looks like you just have a hole.
Yeah, it is tough like that. But what the universal DH will do, it'll prolong some guys' careers. Yeah. They'll be able to DH both sides. They'll have a ton of DHs that probably can't play the field anymore, and can probably make a living at the DH. So it'll be interesting. But you put in the universal DH, and it eliminates people like me who can't hit at all getting at bats. So I've actually had I was fortunate enough to have 3 plate appearances with 2 strikeouts and a walk. So my claim to fame is I have a .333 on base percentage in the big leagues. But that would never happen if we had the universal DH. I never would have been able to experience that. So
yeah, and I think I think when we look at the universal DH, there's something. They tested it, they wanted to see it, and I think that ultimately, now that we live in a world where it's going to be there, it does prolong careers. It does give opportunities that, I think that there's a lot of good to it, and there's also the side of it, and you can speak to this, but, being a pitcher that has to hit, is that a fun world to be in?
It's a nerve-wracking world when you're not used to it. Like I hadn't swung a bat since high school. Yeah. And I was a relief pitcher in the big leagues, so I didn't take BP. and you only really get in that at bat and when you're in the relief world if it's a blowout. And I've been fortunate enough where I was in those games early when the starter got pulled, where I had to have at bats. And you think you're excited, you think you're going to hit a bomb in your mind, you're like, oh, I'm going to get a base hit, and then you get up there and you realize how hard that ball's coming in, and you got no shot.
Yeah. Well, and I think the thing too is, when you talk about protecting your aces, I mean, protecting what you need to protect, that was a concern to me too when I looked at both sides of the coin of a universal DH. Is I don't want my pitcher getting hit. I don't want my relief pitcher. I don't want any of my pitchers getting hit in the bullpen. So I think that for me, it was like, most outside of a couple players, DeGrom is an enigma, right? And Shohei Ohtani is an enigma. So besides a couple people in history, most pitchers in Major League Baseball don't have a high batting average. So there's that, and then there's I don't want this guy to get beamed. So I think that to me were the two big reasons of, well, they're not typically good hitters, and I don't want to risk them. You don't put your quarterback out there as a linebacker. So that was my thought about it. But I know that some people want it to be this way or that way. I just think that it was wrong in baseball to have two sides playing two different games, essentially. And were you surprised that it's existed for so long that way?
Yeah, actually it was. You think that for that exact point, one's doing one thing, the other one's doing the other. So I'm actually surprised that it did go this long with it staying that way without going one way or the other. But what you talk about the pitchers getting beat, I think part of having the pitchers hit keeps them accountable too for how they pitch, so like if you're going to go inside and hit guys and you got to get in the box, that might change the way you pitch a little bit, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes. The offense obviously will benefit. There's no doubt about that, because the pitchers for the most part were outs. But it had the bunting came into play, and that doesn't exist really anymore. Now that the DH is there, you won't have any bunting. So parts of the game have evolved for sure.
We're going to take a step aside for a fast break inside of our Travel Cafe Cuball studios. This is Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, on site on location in the LeMoyne Dolphins takeover. Dolphin time is the entire show today. Dolphin time from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern time. We're hanging out with Scott Cassidy, the baseball head coach here for LeMoyne, and then Bob Beretta, athletics director, will be joining us in that last portion of today's broadcast. When we come back, going off of the conversation we just had, I'm going to speak with Scott about justice in baseball. When is it okay at the plate to let somebody know, back off? And is it okay? We'll talk about how baseball tries to right their own wrongs even when the league doesn't do it themselves. We'll talk about that right after this fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. Stay with us.
Cafe Cuball offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecuball.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cuball needs. Cafe Cuball, coffee for the soul.
This is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942. Mother's Cupboard and to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge, and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item, available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating. Find them at 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and all the time online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, you can order all throughout the country at maandpaspopcorn.com. And remember to get your tins, which have in-store half-price refills forever. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, available to you for fundraising and all of your events by calling 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you? The Millhouse Market, located on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York, is worth the drive every time. Make sure you make your way out to the Millhouse Market today and every Tuesday through Sunday for their general store as well as their indoor dining bistro menu that changes every single week. And of course, their drive-through pickup window to grab your food and go. Download the Millhouse Market app on the Google Play or Apple App Store today to have every single piece of the menu at your fingertips. And your biggest problem will be trying to figure out what you're going to order and what you're taking home for later. Millhouse Market, right there for you on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York. Absolutely, positively worth the drive every single time. And the picks that I have for you to go out and try, breakfast pizza, their M&M cookies, as well as the margarita pizza, and I would throw another one at you today, the meatball sandwich. So go out and try that, as well as the sun-dried tomato mozzarella bread when that is available while supplies last. So go out and get that today at the Millhouse Market and continue to support local in our community. Now more than ever, it's imperative that you do so. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there. And of course, you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100. And also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
PB&J's Lunchbox, the food truck that you love finding all throughout Central and Upstate New York, now has a street-side cafe. So when you're craving their traditional favorites as well as their out-of-box amazing menu items, you can now head to 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Located just minutes from the highway, the Thruway, Destiny USA, and Onondaga Lake Parkway, PB&J's Lunchbox Street-Side Cafe is there for you Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., serving breakfast, lunch, and and dinner all throughout the day. Get breakfast for dinner, dinner for lunch, whatever you fancy, including their award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Find them at 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox, where we love to know what's in your lunchbox. As a patient, what do we want? To be cared for, to be listened to, and to have someone walk us through the process on our path to victory. Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics does all of those things beautifully, with Dr. Mark Petropoli leading the team on 791 West Genesee Street in Skaneateles, New York, located minutes from beautiful Skaneateles Lake. Whatever your injury may be from head to toe, preventative care, rehab, physical therapy, laser therapy, and surgery are all available at Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, where they care about us, they listen to us, and they understand that everyone's path to victory is a little bit different. Let them help you on yours by calling 315-685-7544 to make your appointment today. That's 315-685-7544. And find out more information at victorysportsmedicine.com. And welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Travel Cafe Kubal Studios. Happy to be here with you on site, on location, on LeMoyne's college campus here in sunny, beautiful, warm, hot, spicy, a little bit cool, but happy to be here with you. We are inside of the dugout of LeMoyne Dolphins baseball with head coach Scott Cassidy and doing our special here from LeMoyne, making history, Scott, as we have never done the full broadcast on-site, on location of Wake Up Call at LeMoyne. So you are the first to take over the show on-site on campus. How does that feel?
Feels great. Great. I'm excited.
So we've been talking about a lot of different things, and the justice of baseball. Your thoughts, and being in the pitching world, what is your take on when, in the case of the Astros, for a couple seasons after they got caught with cheating and whatnot, and, you know, the way that they went about trying to kind of Morse code to each other what was going on, that pitchers retaliated for a couple years. There's moments where if you go after our guy, we're going after your guy. And if a pitcher comes up to the plate, like you said, that's been getting way too close or maybe beamed a couple people, then there might be something coming toward that pitcher. For or against the justice that players take into their own hands when they think that the league office, in the case of the Astros, didn't do enough, or in the case of the game itself, when things get a little bit too close or for comfort, is it right or wrong for a pitcher to seek justice?
I think so. At that level, at the big league level, at the professional level, yeah, I think that if you in the regards of cheating, it's tough. You know, you're trying to make a living, all on the same playing field, and when there's people that are doing something to swing to one side or the other, you can affect careers that way. And I think that people handled it properly, you know, and it's not something that's going to keep going. Obviously, it's kind of in the past now.
Yeah.
It's just tough when the league office doesn't take care of it themselves with punishment, and it seemed like they got off pretty easy during that situation.
Yeah.
So it's difficult, you know, and you know, I'm all for like people being able to throw inside and if you want to hit a guy on purpose in the game, and it's part of the game. It has been for years. People might not know you hit a guy on purpose, but it might send a message to guys not getting comfortable in the box. But at the same time, I don't think there's a need for hitting a guy because, say, he pimps a home run.
Yeah.
Like, in my mind, if you got me, then you got me. You can do whatever you want. Because at the same time, you'll see pitchers strike a guy out with the bases loaded and scream at the top of their lungs on the way to the dugout, which is totally fine too, you know. So that's just part of the excitement in the game. But you know, when you start talking about cheating, like I I played through the steroid era.
Yeah.
So it's tough. Like, you wonder what would have been if you did it, or what if these guys didn't do it. I've given up my share of home runs, and I'm wondering how many of them guys were doing it. So, like, was it career changing? I don't know, but you never know what would have been if the guys were all playing on the even playing field. But I think there's a time and place for justice in the game if it's not taken care of elsewhere.
Well, and you brought it up. Something that I've said before is people talk about steroids, they're so focused on the hitter, right? And what they did, and it was wrong and this and that. I'm like, listen, you don't understand. That affects you as a pitcher. It affects your strikeouts. It affects your ERA. It affects so many different things about your statistics. And what if you needed 3 more strikeouts to put yourself in a situation where you got a big old bonus, $1 million bonus? And then we look at the outfield. We look at everybody involved in the game, that if someone's taking steroids, if someone's doing something not right in baseball to give an unfair advantage, it affects everything. And like you said, you gave up your share of runs. How many of those were enhanced? And without being enhanced, would they have happened? Because people talk about, listen, hand-eye coordination, and you still got to have this and that. But if steroids didn't create a competitive advantage, people wouldn't take them. So to say, well, they don't really have much to do with baseball, then what are these people, just injecting themselves for fun? So as a former pitcher, how do you combat the argument of people going, yeah, they took steroids, but they still have to be good at baseball?
Yeah, it's interesting, my take on this, because I was a pitcher, and what people don't realize is that there are a lot of pitchers doing it too. Yeah. And they were throwing harder because of it, and they were recovering faster because of it. Yeah. So it was everywhere, and I really don't. Who's the elephant in the room? Barry Bonds, right? Mm-hmm. And I will state this wherever, anybody that in my lifetime that I've watched, he's the best hitter that's ever played the game in my lifetime. Okay. And if he did it, I'm sure it definitely was an advantage for him hitting so many home runs.
He was 89 pounds, and then he became the Michelin Man.
He was also a stud before he got huge. That's
well,
what people don't understand.
Was he a good? He wasn't. In your opinion, was he a power hitter before? Like, he was a good baseball player.
He was a 30-30 guy.
So.
So would he hit 70?
Yeah.
Probably not,
Yeah.
But what was impressive about him, and I guess this is the argument of the other way, is that he didn't swing and miss. And steroids didn't do that. And he had the best eye of anybody, and when he swung, he did damage. And to see it up close, and I faced him, and he's just, obviously he's an intimidating guy in the box because he is gigantic. Yeah. But he was just so good with his bat-to-ball skills that it was incredible. But you're right. Like, it's just like the game in that era wasn't policed like it was now. So it was not him. It was a ton of different people that were doing it. Yeah. And to this scale of, I don't think anybody would really know, So, like, it's to keep people like him out of the Hall of Fame, or Roger Clemens, or any of these guys that pitched in that era, I think does a disservice to baseball in that era. Yeah. So I don't know. It's a controversial topic. A lot of people have different thoughts on it because they say one's a cheater, but then you put guys in there that have admittedly done steroids. So it's crazy.
Well, and there's obviously with the current voting that just went on, and Big Papi getting in, nobody else. There's a world we're living in where now, Sammy Sosa's like the final year on the ballot. So some of these names of the steroid era, or connected to steroids in general, they're not getting in. How do you feel about the fact that these names have fallen away that were connected with that, allegedly? And then the second part of the question is a little bit different in the falling away in their own sense, is that there's guys that were on this recent ballot to get in the Hall of Fame that are notable names that receive less than 5%, so now they're dropping off the ballot. So the history of baseball as far as what's going to be in the Hall. The Sosa world gone, some of these other players gone, and at the same time, some notable guys that, names that you would know even if you don't know baseball that well have now fallen off as well.
Yeah, it's tough because there's so many good players that are not going to get in the Hall of Fame. And we talk about the Big Papi one. If I'm not mistaken, I think he was caught doing steroids at one point or admitted it at some point. And do I think he should be in the Hall of Fame? Absolutely. One of the biggest clutch players ever, but when you talk about these guys like Roger Clemens and Mark McGwire and Barry Bonds, to not have them in the Hall of Fame with what they've done, it's crazy to me. And it's just tough. It's tough to see it because it's a big chunk of time that they dominated the game, and to not have them in the Hall of Fame. I think about the Sammy Sosa and the Mark McGwire thing, and they saved baseball, those two. That was when baseball was in a rough patch, and that home run race, like, it brought baseball back on the map, nationally. And so to have them not be in the Hall of Fame, I don't know. Like, my thing is, if you didn't stop them from doing it back then, then why even penalize them now? Because it wasn't apparently an issue back then.
Well, Major League Baseball benefited from them.
Absolutely.
So it's like, well, whether you're doing it or not, we need you.
Right.
And now that we don't need you,
Shame
you could
on
be punished now. Yeah. And I mean, I know that all too well, that there are organizations that when you are in front of them and you can do something for them in the moment, they love you. And the second that you've moved on or your eligibility's done or whatever, you're not on the team anymore, then it's on to the next. And, those people eventually run out of inventory. But you played in the majors. What about Major League Baseball would you like to see? What bothered you the most? Is it something like that where Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire saved baseball and now they're criminals? I mean, what is something that you look upon when it comes to Major League Baseball and say, like, this is hypocritical, or I wish this changed?
I think it's kind of all of that. It's what's going to happen if Carlos Correa continues to have a great career.
Yeah.
Is he going to be penalized for the Hall of Fame because they were caught cheating a couple years ago? Probably not, right? But what's more of an advantage, knowing what pitch is coming at you or having a little bit of extra muscle? Yeah. So I guess it's just the handling of things. Like, it's like case by case, and it doesn't seem to be like the same penalties for actions. That's kind of annoying a little bit.
Well, I'm looking at the list right now. I want to make sure I pulled it up here. For those who don't know, if you receive less than 5% of the voting, you fall off the ballot. These are the names that have fallen off the ballot of the Hall of Fame. Just to give you all some thought here on this, because they're names that you know. Tim Lincecum, Ryan Howard, Mark Teixeira, there's Jonathan Papelbon. They're all falling off the list. Do any of those surprise you?
Not really. Not when you talk Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Great players.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, one of the things too, is that, like, I think I see some guys get, I don't know the names offhand, but they get voted in the Hall of Fame. They're like, really, Hall of Fame? Yeah. Like, Hall of Fame is special. It's like, it's the elitist of the elite. And, people say, oh, so-and-so should have been in the Hall of Fame. And you look at their numbers and you're like, well, I don't think so. Like, there's so many people in the past that haven't been in that had numbers just like that. And, yeah. And it too, when you compare numbers against numbers to, like, it's hard to compare today's players' numbers to the numbers of Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, and all them when they were playing at places that were just enormous baseball fields, and they were using pieces of lumber that were huge, and just the thing changed. So, like, there's a little bit more home runs now, more strikeouts, probably less complete games and innings pitched and all that stuff. So to compare the eras is difficult for a Hall of Fame, but I think there's so many good players that will fall off, but I don't think we've seen anybody fall off that I think is like a bona fide Hall of Famer.
Guys that have finished up their opportunity to get in this list: Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Curt Schilling, Sammy Sosa.
Yeah, those are some names. And then I always like to throw in Don Mattingly.
Yeah.
You know?
But just, I mean, the fact that voting happened here in 2022, and as it stands right now, Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, Curt Schilling, not getting in.
You know what? I'll go back to one of my biggest pet peeves that you asked. I guess it's having the writers have this complete say on who gets in the Hall of Fame. Because a lot of that, and I think that list is probably a result of this, is how you handled the media. You know? Like, Curt Schilling was not known for handling the media.
I'm a Diamondbacks fan, and the way he left Arizona pissed me off.
Right? And
it pissed me off.
And they're going to remember that, you know? And
I wouldn't vote that way. Like, I leave that out.
Right.
And that's what I don't understand is, like, okay, as someone who's connected to the baseball world and part of one of these associations, I'm sitting here going, who's in the, like, why am I not in the room? And who in their right mind back in the day, and I know that this kind of goes off, I don't want to, I'm sorry for interrupting, Babe Ruth, who voted against him? Who voted against Hank Aaron?
Right.
Like, who in their right mind said, you know, Nolan Ryan was good, but he wasn't great? Like, I guess to your point,
Right.
you know, because to be voted in unanimously, the only time that happened was with, you know, Mr. Closer himself.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you look at Mariano Rivera, this is what I talked about this on the show, I got so pissed for him that what did he do? Well, Dan, he got voted in unanimously, and he's a reliever, and you know he doesn't deserve it because he's not a real pitcher. And I was like, well, he is a real pitcher. He's the greatest closer of all time, and they were mad at him that he got voted in unanimously. But I said it's not his fault that people are stupid. It's not his fault that all of the Sandy Koufax and Nolan Ryans of the world didn't get unanimous votes. Mariano should have gotten in unanimously, but so should have some of the other guys. And why are you going to fault Mariano that they finally did the right thing when somebody in the room just wanted to be that guy that's going to stand against history?
That's exactly what it is. It's crazy to think about that. It's crazy when you have guys that won't vote for people based on just being that guy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be the guy. Sometimes I actually wonder, like, are they doing it so their ballot gets out so they'll be in the media? Yep. Like, look at this guy right here from this, and now it gives them their limelight, you know?
Then they can write a book, Why I Said Hank Aaron Wasn't Good Enough.
Yeah, right.
But the list of people that can still get in, we're looking at some of these here. Scott Rowland, Todd Helton, Billy Wagner, Andrew Jones, Gary Sheffield, Steroid Rodriguez, Jeff Kent, Manny Ramirez, Omar Vizquel, Andy Pettit, Jimmy Rollins, Bobby Abreu, Torrey Hunter. So there's still some names on here. Andy Pettit, whistleblower on Roger Clemens. Should he get in or not? You're a Yankee fan, too.
I am a Yankee fan, and probably.
Okay.
I don't know. I'd have to look. I'd have to do a deep dive on his numbers, but you know, ton of postseason experience, big game pitcher.
Yeah.
You know, he's got a ton of wins. So in this part of the day, like this time, probably, I don't think you're ever going to see like the 300 game winners anymore, you know? So like, and he's not a 300 game winner, but like to even get that close, I don't think it's really going to happen anymore. Like the longevity of these people's careers and how the game has gone and how it's really kind of morphed more towards getting into the bullpen within 5-6 innings. So
yeah,
those starters they're going to be, you know, few and far between from now on.
So we have this list the way that it is right now, and we look at, like I said, Andy Pettit, you said yes. Steroid Rodriguez, yes or no?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay. Why?
I mean, the guy was amazing, and technically, did he ever get caught with steroids? So are we just going to assume?
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna assume that he did. He's never been punished for doing steroids.
No.
So can you hold it against him?
Well, and that's the thing is that only a few players in history have really been brought to the full light of it. And I'll never forget Mark McGuire speaking to Congress when they said, "Did you or did you not take steroids?" And he said, "I'm not here to talk about the past." And I was like, well, nobody's here to talk about what you're doing today. Like, we're, you know what I mean? Like, what if you were up for a murder trial? Did you kill that person? I'm not here to talk about last Thursday at the mini mart here. I'm here to talk about today.
Okay, but use that logic. Say you're on trial for murder.
Yeah.
And there's literally no evidence that you committed murder. But do you convict them anyway? Just because you think you committed murder?
Well, that's the thing is that's when it comes down to the jury,
Right.
Which is the world we live in today. Do people think that Alex Rodriguez took steroids? Probably most of them. Do people think Barry Bonds took steroids? Probably most of them. Blowing up everybody's spot. Does anybody care that he took them? You know what I mean? I don't think it's weird because it's like I think Andy Pettitte has been forgiven, but Roger Clemens kind of in a way hasn't. I think Jose Canseco took the spotlight off himself by saying, but look at everybody else that was with me. So now nobody really is mad at him. But people are still pissed off at Pete Rose. And it's weird. I mean, who's hated more, Alex Rodriguez or Pete Rose? But the thing that I don't understand about the Hall is I just went there recently. I took my dad for Father's Day. And we go down to Cooperstown. We go into the Hall, and we hadn't been in there together in years since I was a kid. So he took me when I was little, and I got to take him now, which was cool. It was almost 30 years later that I got to take my dad. And so here we are at the Hall. We're walking around, and Pete Rose isn't in the Hall of Fame, but his stuff is. Sammy isn't in the Hall of Fame, but his stuff is. McGuire isn't in the Hall of Fame, but his stuff is. Is that right to say, well, look at all the guys who saved baseball after the lockout. Here's Sammy's bat and Mark McGuire's jersey, but they're not allowed to be in here. And here's all the Pete Rose records, but he's not in here. Is that not weird to you that they're there, but they're not there?
Yeah. It's like it's hypocritical. You're trying to, memorialize them, but you're not giving them their due credit. The thing with Pete Rose to me is crazy. It wasn't performance based. No. And the worst part about this is that now with gambling in like everywhere, they'll have Major League Baseball will have commercials promoting gambling, yet they won't let Pete Rose in the hall for gambling.
Yeah.
And it's like
the NFL is all about. I mean, they were talking about having stadiums now where you just sit at your seat and there's a screen there.
It's crazy.
So, in that world, and I think what's going to happen to Pete Rose, and I hope it doesn't, but I think what's going to happen to Pete Rose is what's going to happen to Jim Boeheim. When Pete dies, they'll put him in the Hall because he can't be here to enjoy it. When Jim dies, they'll give him his 101 wins back.
That's crazy.
Like, that's what I think. They're going to punish you until you're in the ground. But in the Pete Rose case, to go a step farther, when we look at, have you been in recently to see the digital screens?
No.
Okay, so when you're walking through a certain part, like after you walk through Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire stuff, there's these digital screens that you can like vote on and see polls and whatever. And I feel like Major League Baseball is like sticking it to Pete Rose in the Hall because there's this thing that says, should Pete Rose get in? And it's in the Hall of Fame, and the vote is like 90% no. And I'm like, did you fudge those? Because most people that I talk to have no problem with him getting in.
Yeah, me too.
So it's like, hey, we want to remind you that this is why he's not in because most of you don't want him in. And it's like, is that the same guy who voted for Nolan Ryan to not get in? You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
What's the reasoning here? So to go back to the voting, are you surprised that Big Papi got in so easily?
Not because of that I don't think he deserves to, because he does, but because of the steroid thing. Like he had that positive test or whatever it was, and people just totally disregard it when that's the hot topic with these other guys. So it was kind of shocking that it was so easy for him to get in when it's the same hot topic.
Yeah. But you go back to your point, he's fun-loving with the media.
100%. Yeah.
You know, he's laughing, he's having a good... Like, he's one of those guys to be like, hey, Big Papi, did you kill somebody? He'd be like, oh, man, life is crazy. Next question. You know what I mean? And they're like, oh, we love you, Big Papi. So, I mean, do you think, to that credit for David Ortiz, that because he's so fun-loving and laughing and smiling all the time, to your previous point, do you think that helps him get in the hall? Because with the media, he was more jovial than, you know, some of these other guys.
Yeah, I think that's 100% what it is. Like, I've been in the locker room with him. He's an amazing person to everybody. So, like, he makes people feel good.
Yeah.
And when you have that interaction with him, you feel good, and then you have a positive outlook on this guy. So when it comes time, yeah, absolutely he's getting in.
So you've been in the locker room with a lot of different players, very notable guys. Can we run down you've named a couple. Can we, I don't care, I want you to name drop. Can you talk to me about the Major League world?
Yeah, I played with some pretty good players. When I came up with Toronto, Roy Halladay was one of our guys, and he actually was pretty influential with me because he kind of went back to the minors and had to revamp his mechanics because he couldn't get anybody out anymore. This was after he threw like a one-hitter or something his first year in the big leagues.
Yeah.
So I kind of met him on that revamp when he was coming back through. I was coming up.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of talks about some things about my pitching and, you know, my delivery and stuff throughout. So he actually, you know, was very instrumental in my development and my big league career. But I mean, I played. Carlos Delgado was there. Raul Mondesi, for people that know back in the day. And we just had some good players. You know, Dan Plesac was actually on MLB.
Yeah.
He was in our bullpen, so it was cool to see him doing the MLB show. But then when I went over to the Red Sox, that was a year after they won. You know, so or a year before they won, year after they won. So you had Big Papi, Manny Ramirez, Johnny Damon, all those guys were over there, and you know Kurt Schilling was there, and then we go over to San Diego, and I'm in the bullpen with Trevor Hoffman, you know, and that was really special to me, just seeing the work ethic and stuff that guy has. So there's been a lot of guys that we played with that are you know, several Hall of Famers really, and then a lot of other solid dudes.
Yeah, so I mean, you're sitting here, and I ask you to name a few people, and you're like, "Oh, Roy Halladay, you know, big part of helping me to know what I needed to do and work on my mechanics." So, I mean, no big deal, you know what I mean? Just a nice mentor to have. I mean, you know, I grew up, you know, always connected with the Blue Jays. The first game I ever saw was back when it was the Sky Dome, and I saw Joe Carter play against the Twins, and I'm pretty confident they killed him 11-2. And I want to say, was Kirby still there? But yeah, no, Joe Carter, because I got a bat from that. And that, you know, the Blue Jays are always that team, because I'm a Raptors fan too, so I'm always rooting for the city of Toronto. And I always call it New York Light. It's like New York, but it doesn't smell bad. And it's like New York, but there's dogs everywhere. And it's like New York, but people are, you know, genuinely pretty nice for the most part. So it's like a really big city with a whole lot of people, but not so much the anger, the rage, and the, you know, rat diaper unique hot smell of the subway. So, you know, I love you, New York, but I you know what, I do. I don't think, can we take a step aside here for a second? Does anybody like riding the subway?
No, not me.
Like, do you ever feel 100% safe?
Never.
Okay. It's like the one time it's kind of like injecting yourself with a needle, hoping it's not hepatitis. You know, it's like you take the subway and you think to yourself, I could die, or it could just be water. Put it in. You know what I mean? Like and because it's funny, I'm talking to my dad about it, and I'm like, well, you know, I covered the Big East and the ACC, so my dad knew I was down there, and I'm covering the tournaments, and I said, well, I have to take the subway from one to the other. And I decided to take the subway all the way back to close to my hotel instead of taking it back to the Barclays. and I had to get out of the subway at 1:20 in the morning, and I had to walk, and it's just a couple blocks, and I got lost for a second because the GPS on my phone likes to tell you you're going straight, and as you're walking, then it spins you around. We've all been there, and so I found my way back, but I had to walk by like 4 different people at 1:20 in the morning, and you're just hoping like, please don't talk to me, like don't ask me anything. And my dad's like, probably wasn't a smart idea to be on the subway at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, Dad, I don't think it's a smart idea to be on the subway at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, you know, it's never fun. No. So can you compare anything in your life to the terror of the subway?
No, but it's always entertaining.
Yeah, it is. There's a guy that came in. He had a giant box full of candy and stuff, and he was saying a lot of things, and I understood some of it. And, you know, he was, and I'm like, where did you get this box of candy from? Like, what store did you walk into, maybe take all of this, and then come out? And then one kid was just going up and down trying to sell Oreos for $1. And I'm just trying to, like, do my thing. But my one time of somebody selling something on the subway that was insanity was this guy came, you know, the Hugs juices? Mm-hmm. It's like not juice, just like pure sugar water. But you give them to your kids in the summer because you want them to like go crazy for hours and then go to night-night. So this guy comes with a suitcase and he unzips the suitcase and he's got Hugs, right? But they're not the flavors you think. So he's like, I got blue raz, I got cherry, I got Long Island iced tea, I got midnight, I got blackout. I'm like, wait a minute, because they all were closed. So I'm like, how did you seal these back? One of them was brown. I was like, I'm good. You know, I was like, you have blue raspberry and Long Island iced tea? And then, you know, it's like, I got midnight. And there's a black one. And I'm like, yeah, no, let's move on. They were $1, you know, take a chance. But the subway is always an interesting place to be. And I never feel healthy down there, like breathing the air. You know what I mean?
I do.
Like, why? So have you experienced anything? Can you say anything in your travels that was like that?
No, because I try not to put myself in situations that could be dangerous.
You know what I mean? But like so many people throw themselves, and then I see girls come onto the subway by themselves, and see, I think of like a protection. I'm not sitting there going like, oh, what's she look like? I'm sitting here going, I hope that she gets to where she needs to go.
Right.
You know, it's just because you like watch people watching people, and I don't know, you know, how much you know about Marvel or any of that stuff, and I'm a peaceful man in real life, but sometimes you think about the world we live in today, and you look at vigilante stuff like Daredevil and then the Punisher, and I watch the Punisher and I go,
yeah, I get it.
I mean, if it's New York, you know, I get it. But so, do you, before we get back to LeMoyne baseball here, do you have, as we stepped aside for a second here, do you have a guilty pleasure? TV show, something that you watch, something that you like to connect with? Do you like any of the Marvel stuff or any of those things?
I'm not a big Marvel guy. I watch a ton of TV shows though. Like I get locked into a lot of different TV shows at night. You know, once the kids go to bed is like quiet time, so I get a little bit of time to just kind of veg out. So there's too many to name. Like it depends on the day. You know?
What's like a guilt, like a pleasure that you just like for years you're like, even if it's because I have one, like if I want to go to sleep and I want to relax, I'll watch Everybody Loves Raymond.
I usually when I'm going to sleep I just have sports on. Yeah. I'll have Sports Center on, you know, until I get just about ready to go, and then it's click off and go to bed.
That was me growing up. I watched Sports Center all the way until I fell asleep, and first thing in the morning. So name a couple of the TV shows.
Right now I'm watching a TV show called The End Game. It's new.
Okay, I do know that. The actress that was in that, she's been in a lot of different stuff. Also the love interest of Deadpool for Ryan Reynolds, but she was in V, which was the reprise of the Alien series. It was on ABC. Yep. So I did see that she's in the End Game.
Yeah, that got me locked in. So outside of that, like last night, I watched the FBI's. Yeah, you know, I like watching all the FBI's, the Law and Orders, and all that stuff.
Do you watch the Chicago stuff?
I used to watch here and there. I'll watch that.
Okay. See, but I feel like if people can roll me this, if you watch Law and Order and you watch the FBI stuff, and I watch The Punisher, it's not that far off.
No, I can see that.
It's really not. And what I find interesting though is that The Punisher's on Disney Plus now, and it is not. It is not
suitable
Disney.
for kids.
No, but I mean it's Marvel, and they got to deal with it because Marvel's going darker, and there's going to be a lot of things coming with that. So, but it's John Bernthal. He's just an incredible actor, you know, and he plays the Punisher, and he also was Shane in The Walking Dead. Did you ever get into The Walking Dead?
I watched it for a little bit. I wasn't locked into it though.
I'm gonna finish it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get to the end. I'm gonna get there, but I mean, I don't know what a proper ending is. It seems like whenever a show is really good, you can never end it right.
Yeah, I get watching shows and then I just get bored with them. You know, like I watched, you know, it was a Breaking Bad back in the day. I'd watch like 2 seasons and then I'm like, this is long.
Did you watch Sons of Anarchy?
I started.
See, I watched it with my dad when nobody talked about it, and then we watched it a couple seasons, and then we stopped, and then the whole world was like, oh my God, Sons of Anarchy, and then there's spin-off shows. But we were like to it when it was like a nothing show.
Yeah.
And we thought, I mean, and then I got lost somewhere in the mix of that.
Right.
So I can understand that. You have, and we can't see it here on camera here, but I actually, well, let me see if I can bring this up for us, because I want to show everybody what this says. It's important. We have props. Okay, so to take this out and spin it around here, let me see if everybody can see it. So I'm going to put this here for you all. You can see it now. LeMoyne Baseball, we have out here where obviously our people are in the outfield and whatnot, the team itself. Passion, grateful, family, drive, pride, focused, resilience, swag, loyal, respect, together, hustle, committed, selfless, enthusiasm, determined, energy, trust, and integrity. Pursue excellence. Your thoughts on the was this something that you made, and why?
So we did that a bunch of years ago. The kids, the guys, the players on the team kind of put it together. We were coming off a not so great season, and you know, in discussing things in the summertime with the coaches, like, we realized that we had a super talented team, skill-wise, but they weren't playing together. Seemed to be like a team full of silos, you know, 3-4 guys here, 3-4 guys there. Nobody really meshed, and we brought them together in the fall. The very first day in the fall, we went up into a classroom, and we got them together, and we wanted to know, like, what does it mean to you guys to play for LeMoyne baseball?
Yeah.
And we had the whiteboard going, and we were writing stuff up there, and these are the words that they were throwing out there, and you know, we fenced it in like a baseball field, and we're saying, you know, this is what you guys believe it's to be. This is what we have to be, you know. So if you guys see each other kind of straying away from what's inside that, then it's your job and your responsibility to pull that person back in. So we're all on the same page, going in the same direction. And if they can't be pulled back in, then we need to address it, you know. And it was amazing. Like, the conversations we had in the room that day were crazy. And like, even when we started talking about what the problem was, and we talked about the silos, and we had some players come up to me after and say, hey, were they talking about me? And your answer is like, yeah, if you think it's about you, it's probably about you, you know? And within days, like, when we start getting outside to practice, and it was an immediate change on the attitude of the guys. And we went from, I think, the worst season we've ever had, 14 wins, to 26 the next year. So we kind of flipped our record.
Yeah.
And with the same guys, basically, you know, and it was just the way that they carried out their business, both in the classroom, on the field, picking each other up, taking care of each other, you know, making sure that we, you know, take the younger kids under their wing, you know, let them know this is how we do things here. So it was amazing. I mean, so we put that together to kind of remind them. We got one in our locker room as well, just so people can see it and say, like, a reminder, like, this is what we're about. And it's not, what was great, it wasn't coach directed. You know, it wasn't like we didn't put it together and say, hey, this is what we are. Yeah. They did it. So it was like genuinely from them, from their hearts. So it meant a lot more. So that's kind of what that is.
Well, I mean, you essentially said there's a problem. You didn't ignore the problem and push it under the rug, because as I tell people, you push enough under the rug, you're going to trip over it eventually. So you said, hey, there's an issue with culture. What do you guys think? What do you want us to be? Right. And to let them go up there and write it. I think we're family. I think we need to hustle. I think we need to be committed. I think we have to have integrity. I think we should be together. I want to know the person that was like swag. But,
Yeah. Right.
But, to put all of that up on the board, like you said, you let them create the collage and said, okay, if this is what you think as a team should represent us, then how are we going to get here together? How are we going to find a way to be all of these things that we obviously haven't been? And to see a team go and, like you said, flip the record from 14 wins to 26 with the same unit, that says a lot, that you said to them, okay, you know what? What do we need to do? What do you want to see? What do you think a team means to you? And to have them go up there and write that, and then they personally responsible to say, I want to keep that. And then as a team to say, we need to work together. And then to come up to you and say, Coach, are they talking about me? There's something to be said about how you addressed it and your staff. There's something to be said to how they responded. And the fact that once they saw it on the board, it wasn't just a lesson for the day that they forgot about. Why do you think your team lived by the lesson? Why do you think they didn't just put everything up on a board and then go back to their room and forget about it?
Well, I think some of it was the results of the previous year, obviously, and the feeling that they had about having a horrible year. But I also think a part of it was like ownership. Like it was them that did it. Yeah. I learned throughout my time coaching here that it's not like a dictatorship of me just yelling and telling them what to do and how they need to do it, because I've had people do that to me before. Like, well, when we did it, I'm like, well, times have changed, and when you empower the kids, I feel like you just get so much more out of them. And when you're all in it together rather than us being the dictator telling them what to do, I think they respond to things a lot more. So when they feel like it's something that's theirs, then it's theirs. And then they have to be responsible for it. And I think that's kind of what took it. And they've run with it since then.
What do you think makes a good coach? How you've had different leadership, as you just mentioned. So what, in your mind, are the foundations of good leadership?
I think what I've learned throughout my time is trying to get relationships with the kids. I think when you can identify with them, and it's hard. I'm never going to say that it's easy. You got 30 plus kids on a baseball team. It's hard to have the same relationship with every kid. Yeah. We tell kids all the time, like, we have an open door, come by if you need anything. And there's a handful of guys that just come by just to chat. They don't need anything. They just want to say hello and sit down and chat. And I love that. Yeah. And that's when we build those really good relationships. So I think having the relationships with these kids, and once they realize that you're in it with them, not just as their coach, we live their problems and their successes and their failures just as much as they do. I think that goes a long way with trying to build the culture within the team. I've had a ton of people that have taught me the baseball part of it, teaching the baseball part, and just like any sport, teaching basketball, teaching lacrosse, the sports. Yeah. That's the easy part. The harder part is really just connecting with everybody and making sure everybody's in the same line, going in the same direction. So I think that's really what we try to key in on. And some relationships take longer than others. You hit it off right away. Kids that are open, bubbly personalities, those are the easy ones to connect with. It might take a year or two to really connect with some of the quiet kids because they're not as open and outgoing. But you hope that at their time here, you've been able to connect at some point.
Has it changed, in your opinion? Does, recruiting and coaching today's student athlete, has it changed?
Yeah, because I think, the process has changed because there's so much social media and all that stuff. I think you recruit the family, You're not really recruiting just the kid anymore. I think back in the early time, you go after the kid.
Yeah.
But now you're really recruiting an entire family, which is great because once they come on board, they're part of your family. So it's really good to get to know everybody. But you're never really going to get a kid that commits because the kid alone wants to come somewhere. I think it's a group decision more now.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, we've always been pretty personal with our recruiting. Like, we don't send the kids off on a tour and then meet up here. Like, we'll take them all around there with their family. We'll try to get to know them. So I think that part of it's changed a little bit. The social media obviously has changed. Like, everything's going so digital, which is hard for me because I'm not a big social media guy or stuff like that. And that's why my assistant's really good with that stuff for me. So, like, we work well together, and he tries to get me more technologically advanced than I am. But I think that's kind of what's changed in the past.
No, and I mean, and that's understandable. Do you think you've had to change what you say or how you say it when you're recruiting?
No, I don't think so, because I mean, my thing with recruiting is I'm always going to just be super honest. If I don't get a recruit because they don't like what we have, then I don't get them. Yeah. But I don't want them to come in. I was a transfer student. I went somewhere else and then transferred. You know, kind of promise you this, promise you that, didn't happen. And I'm not going to put anybody in that situation. Like, I don't want to tell people one thing and then it not pan out and it was because I lied to them. I will never do that. So I've always been super open and honest about playing time and what we do here and how things operate. And then when they come in here, there's no surprises. Yeah. You know, and playing time's always earned, you know, obviously. So some people, they listen to you when you're recruiting trip, but then when it happens, they're like, whoa. I'm like, well, that's how it works. You gotta earn it here. Like, so I haven't really changed the scope of like how I go about recruiting a kid.
When we look back on your time, 33 appearances in 3 seasons at LeMoyne, 14-12, 1 save, 3.44 ERA, 153 strikeouts, over 186 innings pitched, 18 complete games, and 4 shutouts. Your thoughts?
Those numbers aren't very good compared to some of the kids now. You know, like, I pitched here for 3 years. My first year, I had a really good year. I think I led the MAC in ERA that year. My second year was not good. I actually got strep throat and mono that year. So I was out a couple games. But then
what year was that?
That was my junior year, 97.
Okay. Because I got mono when I was in college too, and my mom called my boss and told my boss I'd be into work 2 days later, and my dad was like, he can't even move.
Yeah. It's tough. But I followed it up with a good year my senior year, and I actually was named MVP of the conference. And so I had a really good year. And then I was fortunate enough to sign as a free agent. But I have kids that pass my stuff all the time now. So, like, kids are getting the complete games. Like, oh, they're going to catch me. They pass me in strike. At the time, I was the single season leader in strikeouts my senior year. Yeah. That's not even close anymore. I'm hoping to hang on the top 20. You know?
But, I mean, LeMoyne's had a D1 history and a D2 history. What's your thought on the world that LeMoyne has lived in baseball?
It's been different. It's been, you know, like I said, they were D2 back in the day, and then they went D1. I played here D1. I coached here for a year D1, and then we went D2. And, I mean, it's different. You know, do I think we could compete Division I? I think we could. You know, we'd have to recruit different types of recruiting, bring in different types of kids, but not definitely different types, but, you know, you'd have to increase your recruiting effort a little bit. But the landscape of it's the same. It's baseball. You know, you play the game, you recruit the best kids you think can come in here and fit your culture, and you put the product out on the field. So, you know, it was funny when we made the transition originally, we thought we were going to lose a lot of guys, you know, and we lost a couple. And the kids that stayed, we won the NE10 tournament that year and went to the regional, and we had been playing as an independent, so they had no postseason. Watching these kids play in the postseason, it was amazing. You know, like they loved it. So like I think back and I'm like, it's their 10-year anniversary this year, and they're all talking about coming back for the fall when we have our golf outings and stuff. So like, would that have happened if they were stayed at that level and played and won 20 games and lost 30? You know, so it's different. It's the games played the same. The venues are nicer in Division One, and you think that everybody's really catching up on that aspect, though.
Yeah, you know, and to see what you've done here before we have Athletics Director Bob Beretta join me here, your take on why LeMoyne, because you chose to come here, like you said, transferred. So why back then? Why now? And is there anything between playing and coaching that you can say, that was my why back then and it's still my why today, why I would tell someone to come to LeMoyne?
I think it's the people. It's the comfort level. It's how everybody welcomes you, and it's a smaller setting than a big school, and I think people are comfortable with that. And in my experience, I went away out of high school, and I came back, and I was welcomed with open arms by everybody, not just the athletic department, but the people on campus, the people in the cafeteria. You know, it made me feel so much at home that I was comfortable right away. And then when I left, even when I was out playing, people know about LeMoyne. As small as it is, they're like, oh, you went to LeMoyne, you know, and so-and-so, I remember so-and-so. So it's like you'll meet people that went to LeMoyne. It's always you have this little connection. So I think that's what it is. I think it's the connection, the hominess, the familyness. And I know that's tacky because everybody's like, oh, it's like a family. But it really is. It's like if you're open enough to introduce yourself to people and let people in, then it becomes like your second family. And when people come in here and they walk, like I said, we'll walk them around, and when we walk them around on campus, everybody's saying hello to each other instead of putting their heads down and walking by. And that means something. So I think it's like the connection that you get with the people on campus. The people are what makes this place run.
That coming here from Scott Cassidy. Scott, we spent a lot of time here today, and I feel like we've opened so many doors to other things I want to talk about. I love the sitting on the couch aspect of you and I talking about baseball and the world of it. I would love to watch a game with you and just like see it in the moment, your thoughts, because this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, and the fact that I pitched and Barry Bonds came. I'm like, Barry Bonds came up to the plate. I mean, like, did anything inside you go, I'm just going to leave the ball here? You know, I mean,
it's funny. I'll give you a quick story. Yeah. Before we were playing them, they go through the scouting report, and then it's like, all right, we're going to intentionally walk them. We're not going to give them anything to pitch. So my teammate's like in the bullpen. He's like, I'm pitching to him. I'm like, no, they told us not to pitch. You're not supposed to pitch. He's like, when I get in there, I'm pitching, and he did. And he took him opposite field, second deck, right over our head in the bullpen. So fast forward the next day, I get called in, and they're like, whatever you do, don't look at him in the box because he's enormous. So I'm got the ball, and I'm getting ready, and I'm like, all right, here we go. And I look up, and the first thing I do is look at him. I'm like, oh, my gosh, he's huge. So I'm supposed to throw 4 pitches out of the zone.
Yeah.
Don't I screw it up? And I throw one right down the middle. And he takes a hack and hits it straight up in the air, about 7 miles in the air, and a foul ball. First baseman catches it. 0 for 1, Barry Bonds against me. You know, so I own the guy.
There you go. 100% against Barry Bonds. That's right. That's all that matters. So with that being said, Scott, I mean, it's been a pleasure to sit in the dugout here with you for Wake Up Call on the road here at LeMoyne. And I mean, honestly, you and I have gotten to connect when we did some things for Giving Day and for the New Year. But it's been an absolute pleasure to make history bringing Wake Up Call to LeMoyne and having you be the first guest that gets to do that. So
my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for the stories. So we have a lot more to come with Scott Cassidy, and I will tell you, sitting next to him right now and looking at you still today, I wouldn't want to go up against this guy. So maybe you could be my bodyguard when you retire. So with that being said, we'll take a step aside here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside the Cafe Cubal studios. Coming up next, somebody you may know on Wake Up Call. He's here a little bit. Bob Beretta joins the show right after this, and he took a page out of my book. He's off screen right now, but he's wearing a pinstripe suit. I'm proud of Bob. We'll be back right after this. Thanks so much for tuning in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Cubal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecubal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cubal needs. Cafe Cubal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
This is Jim Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have at any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City.
Our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also I think we recognized that, we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career. It's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Travel Cafe Kubal Studios. We are hanging out on site, on location, in the dugout here. We just had Scott Cassidy, the head baseball coach of the LeMoyne Dolphins, hanging out with us, telling some incredible stories. And now it's funny how Scott was a relief pitcher, right? But our closer today is Bob Beretta. So athletics director of LeMoyne College here with us. And, of course, every first and third Wednesday of each month during Dolphin time at 9 a.m. Eastern time, you can hear Bob and I giving our thoughts on a bunch of different topics. So make sure you go and check those out on the LeMoyne tab of wakeupcalldt.com and on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, where you can subscribe as well. And we appreciate everyone that has. So with that being said, to our closer, Mr. Beretta, how are you?
I'm doing great today. How about yourself, Dan?
I'm doing well. And, I like this. I like, this is the first time that Wake Up Call has ever broadcasted the morning show on campus. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, congratulations and thank you for this historic opportunity to be part of Wake Up Call in the history of your fine broadcast. And yeah, to be sitting in a dugout setting, I'm a former baseball guy, right? So I'm right at home, but no, would love having you here. You're obviously a big part of the fabric of LeMoyne College, and for you to bring the show here on campus means an awful lot to us. And yeah, it's pretty cool sitting in the office of a former big leaguer, right? And he was telling us some stories off air about his dealings with Barry Bonds, and so yeah, I'm a baseball guy, so I could listen to baseball guys spin yarns for hours at a time.
And that's the great thing is as we look around this dugout, as I'm calling it, Scott Cassidy not only plays here and is in the Hall of Fame here, but he went on to not attempt to be a pro. He was a pro. And, playing with the Blue Jays, playing with the Padres, playing with the Red Sox, we've gotten to tell these stories that he's in a room with Greg Maddux and he's, going up against Barry Bonds, and Roy Halladay helped to really get him to focus on the things he needed to work on to be a talented pitcher. I mean, I feel like you have gold just sitting here at LeMoyne when you hear the stories and the experience and the care. And anytime I've needed Scott for anything, like, hey, Scott, we're going to be doing this. And he's like, oh, yeah, and one of the first people to shoot me a message. I mean, do you feel like you struck gold when you came here and Scott was here?
Oh, no doubt about it. I think he brings the credibility, but he also brings the knowledge. He brings experience. He's ingrained in this community, believes deeply in Central New York and in the Syracuse area. Has raised his family here, and has done a terrific job here at LeMoyne. If you think of, you talk about his ties to the big leagues, but look here most recently, and we were just chatting off the air, but Josiah Gray, recruited by Scott to come to LeMoyne and has flourished right into one of the top young players in the big leagues right now.
Yeah.
Ryan Murphy, people may not be familiar with Ryan or his name yet. He had a fantastic career at LeMoyne, was drafted in the COVID year draft of a 5-year draft. I think he was a 4th round draft pick. He grew up down by where I hail from, down in the Hudson Valley in the Dutchess County area, and he is fast track now. He is a name to watch in the San Francisco Giants organization. I believe he'll either start at high A or double, and he had a fantastic season last year, one of the top prospects in that system, and I think his ETA for the bigs probably 23, but you never know. He could skyrocket this year. So right there's two big leaguers, right, that this small school here in Central New York has produced, and direct result of Scott Cassidy, who not only recruited but certainly developed the talent in both of those young men so that they could be in position to become professionals.
Yeah, and you see that, not only what Scott did himself personally, but paying it forward with these players and with, Ryan Murphy and Josiah Gray, to see the fact that Josiah is there, and like you said, that Ryan is on his way. Just, what that means to the fabric of LeMoyne, that Scott was a part of the history of what had happened, and also, the successes of it and the transition from D1 to D2. And then at the same time, in the not too distant past, we're talking about Josiah and Ryan. The fact that one comes from a school as a claim to fame to send somebody to the big leagues, but to know that Scott not only did it, but now he's training people to do it. And in the here and now, LeMoyne fans and just people all over the world can get to know Josiah and Ryan and get to see what a LeMoyne baseball player looks like as he rises to make his own history.
And they're not only talented individuals on the baseball diamond. Josiah and Ryan, I have not had the pleasure of meeting them in person, but have had conversations with both, talked to both before I officially started in May last year. I talked to both right after I got the job in February, and Josiah also hails from down around where I am from, right, Westchester County and New Rochelle, and but two terrific young men. To this minute, if I were to text either one, they'd both get back to me within minutes. Very selfless. They're tremendous examples of the product that LeMoyne delivers, right? That we talk about the young people that this amazing institution produces, and Josiah Gray and Ryan Murphy are two fantastic examples of that, not just on the baseball diamond, but as people that are big-time contributors to society.
Coming here from Athletics Director here at LeMoyne, Mr. Bob Beretta. Bob, as we're here celebrating making history with Wake Up Call, being on site, on location for the entire show for the first time here at LeMoyne College, and of course every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, you can watch and listen on YouTube.com, Facebook.com, and MixLR.com, all / Wake Up Call DT, to celebrate the history of being here, but to do it with baseball, and you, like you said, having such an affinity for it and a connection to it. What do you love about baseball and softball here at LeMoyne? Because you were just on the road with the softball team, and both of these teams are having early success. They're working very hard toward a hopeful conclusion coming up here within the next couple of months here. So you've been able to firsthand be around these teams. What can you say about the fact that we've given the spotlight here today to baseball, and that we will be giving it to softball, and we would have given it to softball? Tracy was feeling under the weather, and we wanted to make sure that we have Tracy Roman on as well. So just what you can say about the diamond for both.
Yeah, I'm a baseball guy. I played at St. Bonaventure and riding the adrenaline of an NIT run there for the Bonnies and the men's basketball side of things. But yeah, I love being around all of our athletes, all of our student athletes. But of course, I have deep ties to baseball. I was intimately involved with the baseball program at West Point for close to 25 years, and coaching hires and NCAA runs. I'm really blessed. And then transitioned to I served a year as that head softball coach at West Point. So I have a big background in travel softball coaching and was the head softball coach at Army for a year. So baseball, softball is in my blood. And so naturally I do have an affinity for those. I try not to play favorites, of course. But I am so impressed by both of our coaches, Scott Cassidy, and you just spent some time getting to know him, and Tracy Roman has really impressed me as well as someone who is, they both get it, Dan. It's not just about producing these tremendous world-class athletes. They both get it. They understand the mission. They understand the LeMoyne way, right? Our shared culture. They're a big part of that. And the young people that go through their programs are just solid individuals. And I can say the same for our other 19 intercollegiate sports, but we're talking baseball and softball now. And those young people, they're selfless. There's not a lot of attitude in any of them. I think by nature, college softball players and college baseball players are just a grateful group, right? They have tremendous gratitude for the opportunity. And it's no different here at LeMoyne with both programs. I'm so excited to get a chance to watch them here in person shortly. Haven't been able to watch a baseball game yet in person this year. I did last year. I was fortunate enough to get on the road and watch our softball team compete in Florida last week, and we beat the number 4 team in the country, which was outstanding. So I think they're showing flashes of what the trajectory of that softball program is high. And last year our baseball team was in competition for an NE10 championship until the final 2 weekends of the year. So I expect big things from both these programs.
Yeah, and Bob will tell you that when he was on the road enjoying his time with the softball team, he was also in Florida. So, and in Winter Park, right?
In Winter Haven.
Winter Haven.
In Winter
I always
Haven.
confuse Winter Park and Winter Haven because I've been to both, and if you're on the road, they're not that far away from each other. So you're down in Winter Haven area, and basically any part of Florida is just wonderful. And unless you're at the gas station that I was at in Deltona, that was an interesting place. It kind of felt like the end of the world, but beyond that, being down in Winter Haven and being able to enjoy the weather. I know it wasn't always cooperative, but what was it like to realize that in certain parts of the country there's spring going on?
It was so strange though, Dan, because I got down there Monday night, and I went down to watch our men's lacrosse team play Florida Southern Monday night, and literally checked into my hotel, dropped off my bags, and drove right over to Lakeland, which was about 20 minutes from Winter Haven. Yeah. That's why I made the trip. Both teams were competing close by, and watched that competition on Monday night, and then was at the softball diamond by 8:30 the next morning. We had a doubleheader, an early doubleheader. We played a 9 o'clock game, and again a little bit later. Beautiful day. It was beautiful. It was 82 degrees, very few clouds in the sky. It was just awesome to be down there. Yeah. But then, as you are well aware, right, the Florida weather kicked in, and Tuesday night, I guess it was, major rainstorm. The thunderstorm blew through there and dropped about 2 inches of rain on the softball complex. So the next day, they were forecasting rain. It didn't rain, but we were unable to play because the fields were unplayable from the rain the night before. So I didn't have the opportunity to watch our team play that second day. Got a chance to get out around a little bit, work out, and then I'll tell you what, when I got back, I traveled back on Thursday, and the weather here in Syracuse was almost as nice as what I left in Florida. It was 70 degrees, and I was really enjoying the weather here back in New York.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful thing to be able to go out and do what you get to do. You say it all the time, and I say it all the time. It's not, we have to, we get to. And you get to be the athletics director at LeMoyne College, and that meaningfulness to you, that willingness to go on the road. You don't have to. You don't have to leave your office. There's some ADs that never leave the hill, right? They get up in the castle, they lock it up, they take the drawbridge up and send a bunch of emails. You do the opposite. You are always at the soccer field. Then, you're with the softball team. Like you said, you've gone to see the baseball team. You're at every game that I have thought of or crossed paths with you with when it comes to men's and women's basketball. You're out there watching volleyball. There's something to be said about, leadership showing their face for a minute. I say there's three different types of leadership that I've seen. Lock yourself in the castle, never come out. Come to the game for 2 minutes just so you can wave and shake a couple hands of donors, and then sit there for the entire game. You're there. Why do you feel that it is so important, and why to you is it so personal for you to be there?
Well, that's a great question, Dan, and I appreciate the opportunity to answer that. I don't feel obligated to be at any event. I attend the events because I want to be there. I want to be in the trenches with our student athletes. I care about them. I tell them. I had a daughter that just graduated, and she played intercollegiate athletes, ran track and field, played softball, and I coached. I've coached now for, last summer was the first time I didn't coach for 12 years, I think, on the softball side. I take it really personal. I mean, we have almost 400 student athletes, and I know that sounds crazy, but I feel like they're my kids, each one of them. They're my daughters, they're my sons, and I treat them like I was a parent of them. I feel like as an athletic director, our number one charge is to protect and promote the health and safety and well-being of our student athletes. That's physical and that's mental, and I care about them. So if I can get out and watch their competition, especially if it's right here at LeMoyne, I'm going to try to clear my schedule to do that. And then if there's not a conflict and I can get on the road to watch them, I want to see them pursue their passion. Yeah. But and that's their passion, right? They dedicate so much of their lives to that. And I have that blessing to be able to work this job and go out and support our student athletes. And I do know that it's important. I know that it's important to them. I know that it's important to have that presence of leadership, that people care. So that is in the back of my mind always. I know how important it is to them, but I don't do it for that to be seen. I do it because, I get charged up. I get fired up. Yesterday, I was upset. I had a full day of meetings, and I couldn't watch the first half of our women's lacrosse game at Franklin Pierce. I had to watch online, but I couldn't tune in. I tried to clear people out so I could watch. So I'm excited for them. I'm excited to watch our student athletes and our coaches pursue their passion. And I think that every opportunity I have to be present for them, I want to be there.
And you do get passionate because Bob and I, if you watch the live feeds of the basketball games and you see Bob texting, it's probably me, especially if it's late in the game. And so, but I mean, that's a beautiful thing too. When you went on the road with the women's basketball team, I was watching, and I was down in New York City in the Brooklyn area. I'm at the Barclays Center for the ACC. I'm at Madison Square Garden for the Big East, but that women's game was on, and I was staying in my room until that game was done. I listened to Mary's interview, everything. So, there's just something to be said about when you know the people and you care about the people and you care about the mission of a place and what it is. And Scott said something that you said, that Dr. Linda Lemura said, that really everybody I've talked to said, student athletes and coaches. Everybody says the same thing when I ask the question, why LeMoyne? They say, the people. There's something about the people that when you're on campus and people say hello and they care and they're concerned, and it's anybody. And I think that's, I was coming out of sitting down with Dr. Linda Lemura when we did our presidential special, and you can go check that out on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. So her and I were sitting down in her office. I left. There was a professor coming out, and he just said hello to me. Hey, how are you? And I said, I'm good. How are you? I think I was about to say hi to him, and he said hi to me. And we just started talking. We walked out together. I gave him my business card, and I said, I do the, exclusive multimedia marketing partnership here. We, speak with different coaches and players and whatnot. Just spoke with Linda. So if you ever want to tune in, I'd love for you to be a part of it. And he sent me an email almost immediately. Hey, Dan, it was great to meet you. Checking in. How are you doing? And I'm just sitting here going, he was a stranger 5 minutes ago, and now he's like, genuinely, how are you? How are things this week? And where do you find that? But you continuously, in my world, you keep finding it at LeMoyne. I don't find egos. I don't find, drawbridges up. I see people that are like, yeah, you want to do something? Let's do it. I mean, Scott and I talked about this, and I said, hey, I realized in my schedule that I had an opportunity to come here, and I was like, I could talk to Scott on the phone, or we could bring the show to Scott. Why not? And it was so easy. It was a 5-minute conversation of, yeah, whatever you need, let's set it up. Let's make it work. What do you want it to look like? and that was it. And it really is the people here at LeMoyne, and it's just fun to see them because we want them to win, but whether they do or they don't, they're still the people that are so kind. And I think you realize that, and I see that, is that, teams win here, and some teams win a lot, but I don't focus on that as much as I focus on who's winning, because their personalities, it's so much fun to be around it. And I commend the coaches and staff members and everybody that recruits and brings in these people, because they're not just bringing in good student athletes, they're bringing in genuinely good people, and that's not as easy to find.
No, you're 100% correct, Dan. And it struck me, I've told the story probably on this air before, when I was considering applying for this job, I took a drive and I thought that I would just drive around campus because I'd never been on campus, and I wanted to see what it looked like, and I wanted to see if I felt like I would fit in. I thought I'd drive around and drive back to West Point and 6-hour drive and be on campus for 20 minutes and check it out and say, yeah, it looks like it's someplace that I could thrive or really enjoy. And instead, I got out, I walked around, I spent all day on campus. I immersed myself amongst students, amongst staff. I was able to talk to people. This was right pre-COVID, right before COVID hit. And people were so accommodating. I didn't really identify myself or why I was there. I just wanted to see if I felt like it was a warm community. And it was amazing. It really was. It struck me as a place that I need to be part of that family. Like I left campus that day and I said, if I don't pursue this opportunity, I'm going to regret it the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I said at West Point, I was there for 34 years, it was always about the people. The people there are fantastic. The young people are the best and the brightest that the country has to offer. And you know what? Our students and our student athletes here at LeMoyne, not a whole lot different, honestly. There's a different requirement, expectation, and kind of what they've chosen to do in their career path. But in terms of people, quality people, not a lot of difference. And in terms of faculty and staff and the folks that we have surrounded our student athletes and our students with on this great community, they're fantastic. And so I've been blessed. I spent all that time at West Point, and now I'm here in a community that is just so loving, so welcoming, so accommodating, and so selfless. Yeah. That's what this place is about. And I guess all that was ingrained in me because I came from St. Bonaventure, and they had a very similar mindset. It really is. You hear a lot of the talk now that it's like a cult. Well, you know what? That speaks because of the love they have for each other, of the care they have for that community, of the pride they take in their institution and the product. And the same can be said for here at LeMoyne.
Yeah, I think this world has so much work to do that when you come across a community that's just good people, they don't think about it. Nobody asks. Mary has never asked me to pump her up. I've never sat down with Nate Champion and him say, talk about his ego. I don't get that from Scott. I don't get it from Tracy. I don't get it from anybody. Where, I'll talk to Nino on the men's basketball team, and he'll see me out in the crowd, whether he's playing or not. He's like, "What's up, Dan? How you doing?" And he'll come over to me and shake my hand. "How are you? How are things? Anything you need? You need anything from me? Always happy to talk with you." Like, I don't feel like I'm dealing with, and you know it from living in the sports world and the athletic world, we deal with that. There's a lot of egos. I work in the media, Bob. It's 99.9% ego, and then me and 3 other people, and that's it. So, but there's a world that you and I live in that can be so much about gimme, 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 and what am I giving back? And yet, you talk about being a selfless leader. I consider that a part of my life too, is how can I help? How can I be a selfless leader? And you look around this campus and there's so many of them. So, I told you, I feel at home. And I remember a few weeks back, I was sitting right in the front, right by Ted Grant Court. And I was sitting there with Frankie Delia, and Frankie and I are talking, and I looked at the LeMoyne waterfall, and I'm looking over at it, and I looked at Frankie and I go, I just feel like I'm home here. Like I don't walk here and feel like, oh, this is a place that I get to work with. I come here and I think like, oh, this is like an extension of my living room. You know what I mean? It feels like that. It feels like I'm coming to visit a friend. And if student athletes and students feel that when they come on campus and their families feel that, I'm not surprised why they say yes.
Yeah, again, you're a big part of this, Dan, and we really appreciate the friendship that we've forged. But you're a big believer in community, in this community in particular. This is your hometown, Syracuse, and this is a special place. You know, the Heights is a very special place, and when people enter, it's intoxicating in a way. You know, I mean, there's just addiction for goodness, and I know that sounds hokey, right? But it's real. It's real. It's about servant leadership. It's about selflessness. We talked earlier about our LeMoyne Way programming, our culture, and we had an event this morning, and we talked about gratitude, right? We spent an hour with 45 minutes with our freshmen student athletes, and we did some exercises, and Steve Evans led a terrific session for us. He takes the lead on our LeMoyne Way programming, and it's about talking about gratitude and how we can extend the plus to people. If they're having a bad day, try to understand what they're going through and just try to get to know them a little bit. And that's what this place is about. It's about extending the plus. It's about trying to do good. I mean, we're Jesuits, right? We believe in good, doing all good for all, and men and women for others. And so our mission is to try to, if possible, right, we try to make the lives of others a little bit easier every day.
That coming here from Bob Beretta, and for myself, Dan Tortora, this has been our opportunity to be in the dugout at LeMoyne. First time ever broadcasting on site, on location, the entire show of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora at LeMoyne College, and getting to do that with Scott Cassidy inside of his dugout here with the LeMoyne baseball program, and of course athletics director Bob Beretta. You can see Bob and I and hear from us every first and third Wednesday of each month, exclusively on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora during Dolphin time at 9 a.m. Eastern time, and on every second, fourth Wednesday on both of those weeks at 9 a.m. Eastern time. You can have Dolphin Dive as you had here today, as we get to dive deep into the world of Scott Cassidy and his why. So, with that being said, Bob and I have more to bring you in the coming weeks, a lot of exciting stuff. And as always, Bob, thank you for everything.
Thanks for being here, Dan, and thanks for being part of your history.
Absolutely. And as we will do it, we always say it, but it's one thing to say it and it's another thing to show it. So I am more than happy to let the screen show you. Fins up. There's a lot of stuff. I was telling Scott, just setting this up in the studio, I was like, to come here and set it all up, I said, Bob, in today's world,